might be a war on, but down on the farm it's business as usual. Well, almost. The strong young lads have gone off to fight, so now it's the girls' turn. And these pretty lasses can turn the soil as easily as they turn heads. The work may be hard, but everyone's lending a hand on the land, even Rover. Now, this might look like a toy train, but it's little engines like this that... hold on, sorry, my nose hurts. All right, enough of this nonsense. That's more like it. This is Rick Bert's farm. It's a layout that's built in a filing box. Let me see if I can get the whole thing in there. And it's a layout I built mostly to scratch an itch. You see, for a long time I have been fascinated by the agricultural railways of Lincolnshire. This was a network of very quirky narrow gauge lines built to serve the farms in the area, usually using military surplus equipment. They thrived in the period, roughly from the end of the First World War to the 1950s. Mostly they were worked by horse or human power, but some used internal combustion locomotives, and that's what I've modelled here. This engine here is a simplex. It's a very typical sort of locomotive that would get used on these farms. It's very lightweight, very simple. I guess that's why they were called simplex. This is actually a 3D print from TB, which is mounted on an absolutely minuscule Japanese chassis, which works most of the time. It doesn't really like my train set control, but I'm working on that. I've added a little bit of detail, just some sort of general gubbins like an exhaust pipe and something that might be part of an engine. These wagons are modified mini trains. I've repainted them, weathered them, added some potato sacks which are just made of milliput. And I bought them because they're rather neat little things. They're very small and they look like the sort of thing that a farm might be able to knock together in its workshop. This here is a scratch-built carriage. All this is I've just made a sort of timber deck, mounted it on a Pico N-gauge wagon frame, swapped out the couplings, put a station bench and a figure on there, and that's a sort of makeshift coach, the sort of thing that you might use to take workers out to the fields, or indeed take a shooting party out to hunt for pheasants. Actually, there is a shooting party on the layout just here. However, they don't seem to have spotted the pheasant on the roof of the cottage, so lucky escape, Mr. Pheasant. But scratch building on a layout like this is a lot less intimidating than it is on a more imagine I'm doing finger quotes here, serious model, in that because the actual prototypical rolling stock is homemade, then it doesn't matter if it's a bit rough around the edges, because in real life it would have been. Speaking of rough scratch builds, let me show you my little rail lorry. This is the story behind it is that it's something they threw together in the workshop. It has an engine from a steam car. It's otherwise mostly a lorry chassis. In reality, it's built around a Kato 11104 chassis, I believe. And bizarre though this looks, this is actually based on a real locomotive, if you can call it a locomotive. Here it is. This little lorry was used on the Dennis estates. It wasn't hugely successful due to its weight, but it was real. So you see, there's a prototype for everything. Now this here was a remarkable stroke of luck. This is the Bachmann ready-to-run Hudson Open wagon. These wagons were built for the trench railways during the First World War and afterwards got sold on to various light railways, including the potato railways. This one actually bears the livery of the Nocton Estate Railway, which was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, of the Lincolnshire potato railways. It comes with a little handbrake which I haven't installed yet. I also haven't weathered it down, so that's two little jobs I have to do. But I do find it ironic, isn't the word? Funny, shall we say, that you can get a wagon in the livery of the Nocton Estate Railways. Meanwhile, there's companies like the North Staffordshire Railway or the Glasgow and South Western where you pretty much can't get anything ready to run. I don't know. I just thought that was strange, that's all. As you probably gathered from the intro, I went with a wartime setting, mostly just for the sake of adding some interesting cameos. For instance, there you have an RAF airman who's home on leave. I like to imagine that the chap in the green overcoat is the farmer, and that's his son. There's a couple of land girls there, one of whom I've got sort of waving in the general direction of the airman. I've added various animals because it's a farm. Why not? The cottage is a classic kit. It's by Airfix. Daypol now make it. I've painted it up, added some climbing plants there. The other building is this barn, which is scratch built out of card. There's some plastruct girders, and the sheeting on the roof is actually After Eight wrappers. So there's an excuse to just pig out on After Eights, I guess. The grass is actually hanging basket liner, so that's a rather low budget way to get wild grass. I've used various kind of scenic products for plants. To be honest, I can't remember all of them. There are some rather nice laser cut plants by Nock, which I think are worthy of note. Of course, if you're doing a farmyard, what you really need is mud. And for this I've used a specialised product. It's a textured paint by Games Workshop called Stirland Battlemire. I don't know where Stirland is or what Battlemire is, but it's pretty good for creating that sort of earthy, muddy texture. I find it very convincing. What else? Well, the feeder there is Harben Hamlet. The pigs are model scene, I think. I got them second hand. The specialist figures, like the land girls and the RAF chappie there, are from Monty's Models, who do a very nicely sculptured figure. Other figures, there's more from them. Some of them, this chap here, for example, are Daypol workmen, which are absolutely marvellous. I don't know where the chickens came from, but I'm really glad I found them. The car is an Austin 7 by Oxford Diecast, and it's kind of hard to get a decent shot of it without revealing my shameful secret, i.e. that I didn't bother to paint the back scene on this side of the layout. Oh well. The other road vehicle is this rather neglected looking traction engine, which might well find itself being taken away in the scrap drive. How sad. So that's my tribute to the potato railways of Lincolnshire. It's an obscure but I think absolutely fascinating part of British railway history. But I hope I've also opened your eyes to the possibilities of 009 and how much you can get into a very small space. Lest we forget, this whole thing is built inside an ordinary office box file. So I hope that's given you some food for thought, and I'll wish you tatty bye. Hello all, many thanks for watching my video. I really hope you liked it. I tried to do something a little bit more novel this week, and I really hope you enjoyed that. If you did, then let me know in the comments section, or hit that like button. If you like what I do in general, then hit subscribe to stay on top of my content. And I hope to see you around here again in the very near future.